I always wanted them. Because I thought I...
Hello there, beautiful people. Today we've got a marvelous video for you about arguably the singular darkest moment in the Boys universe, and it features Soldier Boy and Billy Butcher. I can almost hear you saying, of course it features Butcher. I mean, what dark moment from this show doesn't? This is your spoiler alert for the end of Season 4, but Soldier Boy's fans are ecstatic that he's still alive, although in a cryopod. This scene was shown as a bonus at the end of Season 4's finale, a classic cliffhanger that gave us a taste of what to expect in Season 5. For those who don't know, the comic Soldier Boy is a complete tool and nothing like the Prime series guy, but he is credited with being one half of the duo that made for one of the most disturbing sketches in the entire Boys storyline. In this video, we'll uncover how Soldier Boy dies at the hands of Billy Butcher in the comics, and what a terribly disturbing end it is. Real quick, before we get into the good stuff, we have a small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing. It's a small click for you, but it means an awful lot to us. Thank you, and let's get into it. Soldier Boy and Billy Butcher in the comics. Soldier Boy is quite clearly a parody of Marvel's Captain America, complete with the shield and the red and white costume. However, Carlos Ezquerra, the illustrator of the Boys comic, has furnished his version with cycling shorts instead of full-length tights, which he often does with his version of Soups, which is always a tickle. Also, Soldier Boy doesn't have the American flag imprinted on his wares, as that design had already been snagged for Homelander. Instead, Soldier Boy has a mighty red eagle on his shield, which definitely boasts of his American branding. While he isn't exactly the valiant World War II hero that Steve Rogers continued to be after he went through the experimental drug testing thing that converted him into a superhero, he does have World War II vet on his resume. It's unclear whether the Soldier Boy from the Payback that Butcher confronts in The Boys is the same Soldier Boy who was involved in World War II, or whether Soldier Boy is a legacy name passed down from soup to create an ongoing legend. But the latter theory seems more plausible, as the original Soldier Boy seems to have been killed by a livid Greg Mallory after he bungled up his mission in the Battle of the Bulge on the Western Front, causing Mallory's soldiers to get caught and slain by Germans. Billy Butcher, meanwhile, needs no introduction. He's the great pyramidal thorn in every Vought product's boots and the Boys' greatest anti-hero, wielding a strange stew of great heroic moments peppered with plenty of brutal and downright ugly ones. Butcher is a man smelted from childhood in an anger-fueled furnace created by an abusive father who knocked around his mum for cheap thrills. Though he remained a troublemaker growing up, he found the ultimate outlet for his anger in the do-or-die world of the British Royal Marines. He made his first kill in the Falklands War and never looked back. After his wife, Becky, the love of his life, was seemingly raped by Homelander, even though we later uncovered that this was all Black Noir's doing, Billy went proper cold, and punishing Soups became his life's all-encompassing purpose and an outlet for his repressed anger. So what brought this unhinged soup killer and the quote-unquote leader of Payback head-to-head on a cold, fateful day?
It's exactly what you are. In case you two forgot.
The inciting incident. The female succumbs to injuries. It wasn't a planned-out affair that led Billy to face up against the Payback lot. No assignment from Mallory, no leads, nothing. Issue number 32 of The Boys begins with a sorry-looking female, who is basically Kimiko in The Boys TV series, fixed up with bandages and an IV, resting unconscious on a hospital bed. Frenchie, who had been called first to the hospital, appears crestfallen as he explains that the female was found a mere 5 blocks from the facility. Butcher, Mother's Milk, and Huey try to pinpoint who might be involved in battering the female and slowly begin to hit the nail on the head. Someone attacked the female to bring the boys in. It was a trap. The hospital where they stood wasn't really a hospital at all, and the limited staff walking around were acting busy and playing their parts in the ambush. Frenchie picks the female up, realizing what he had done by letting his wits get swept up by his emotions over the female's condition, and makes a run for it, along with the rest of the boys. Sensing a soup storm, Butcher specifically asks Mother's Milk to get Frenchie and the female out of there, and a storm it is, led by a sonic boom. The sound shatters the glass windows, and in comes Stormfront and the second-best soup team, the Payback, including Soldier Boy, looking quite like a beach cop in his cycler's belt and mask. As he smashes a fist into Mindroid's face, Butcher asks the others to go on while he holds the fort. But before they do that, Stormfront, who's a man in this universe, gets his hands on Mother's Milk. Frenchie runs out of a window with the female to get her to safety, thank God, and this is when Soldier Boy decides that Butcher is his meat to sear. Very unwise move, but let's go ahead and see how that went for him. The tryst between Billy Butcher and Soldier Boy. Soldier Boy confronts Butcher in the ambush building, whatever that place is. For some reason, he comes to blows with Butcher, spitting out names of American states. He goes Oregon, Nebraska, Arkansas, Maine. I can only assume it's a Boy Scout song he uses to power up for battles. But we guess it does work for Soldier Boy as he manages to stick Butcher against the wall with his brute super strength. But Butcher is a dirty old piece of work. Finding Soldier Boy's face a breath away from him, he bites his nose off, like really chomps it off. Fully disgusting on every level, but undeniably effective. This part in particular is a nutshell explanation of why the boys almost always get the upper hand with the soups. They are crafty and filthy with their means. They have traumatic pasts and training, which has ingrained within them a jungle cat alertness with extreme battle awareness and agility, and a knack for seizing advantage by any means necessary. Soups like Soldier Boy and the rest of the Payback crew are strong and have a couple of colorful powers, but they're largely unaware of how and when to use their strap. At this point, Stormfront receives a painful surprise from Mother's Milk, whom he had brought to his knees with a chokehold, as MM grabs him by the sensitives and draws blood. Butcher tells Mother's Milk and Huey to get out of there, and they quickly oblige. Remember Terror, Butcher's precious English bulldog? He's also present at this party, and he jumps up and catches a mouthful of the Crimson Countess's wrist. She flings him off hard, and this makes Butcher extra mad. With the rest of the Payback squad down and recovering for the moment, Butcher tightens his leather belt around the Countess's neck and snaps it off, leaving her dead on the floor. As a noseless Soldier Boy tries to communicate to his crew that they must leave, Stormfront steps in and takes charge. He tells Soldier Boy that he isn't going to let this mission become another one of his pathetic failures. Ouch, that's gotta hurt. While he isn't fully into Stormfront's little speech about snatching the best soup team crown from the Seven, there's nothing he can do. Holding his bleeding nasal cavity, he watches on as Mindroid and Swatto swoop around under Stormfront's command. Meanwhile, Butcher is getting ready, grinding up some window glass under a brick. He finishes up and calls upon them, baiting them in. Stormfront is there on the whistle, but before he can get any closer, Butcher swipes the crushed glass into his eyes. Stormfront is aggravated and shoots off into the sky, blowing a hole in the roof. Now, Soldier Boy is in a real fix. With the big talking Stormfront out of the picture, he knows they don't hold a candle to Butcher. After all, they're not real fighters, not at heart anyways. He tells Mindroid and Swatto that they should beat it, but Mindroid still wants to see how strong is his fight. I mean, a chance to be the new Seven, that's the greatest temptation right there, and poetically so, Butcher is deep into a shadow fight. Hiding in the dark, Shadow quietly poaches Swatto, who was hovering above Soldier Boy and Mindroid while they were distracted by Terror, who was running around treating Soldier Boy's nose like a chew toy. Soldier Boy resists the urge to follow the dog and get his nose back, but they soon realize that Swatto isn't around anymore. Butcher ramps up the mind games, talking to Soldier Boy as he looks around in the dark for Swatto. The building level they're scouring looks more like a building site with construction material stacked around. Soldier Boy turns a corner and finds Swatto with a plowshare sticking out of his mouth. Butcher had struck him through the back of the head and he must have died on impact. Seeing this, Soldier Boy is dead sure that he wants out. Both the guys make a run for it, but Butcher has their number now and there's no way out. Mindroid tries to call a timeout and implore Butcher, making a case for their fans and how distraught they would be if Soldier Boy, the institution, and World War II vet were to die. In return, Soldier Boy gets a shovel to the side of the face. Butcher decapitates Mindroid with the same shovel next, but he doesn't kill Soldier Boy. After reminding him that he was aware Soldier Boy never fought in the war and was an utter disgrace to soldiers like himself who had actually served, he takes the half-a-face soup captive. Soldier Boy's death. After the Payback incident, the boys in Love Sausage seek out Stormfront and stomp him out like a pest. Worse, actually. They then regroup at a real hospital by the female's side. In a wonderful turn of events, Huey tries to nibble on the female's chocolate limes and she wakes up in a gruff, immediately breaking Huey's arm to express her displeasure. Everyone except the wailing Huey rushes in to celebrate her comeback. But after a few words of advice to Mother's Milk, Butcher says he has one last thing to take care of and leaves. In the middle of a dark room, we watch Soldier Boy's plight. He's tied to a chair, his face defiled, and blood dripping over his legs. He appears half dead until he sees Butcher with a cleaver asking him who sent him out for the boys. In this moment, Butcher appears much like he belongs in his namesake trade, leaving a suggestive waft of how brutal Soldier Boy's end would have been. It's the darkest we've ever seen Butcher look, which is saying a lot for someone who is a regular Skinner in the soup market. The menace in his eyes is unearthly, and while we may have seen other times where Billy left a dinner table full of decapitated bodies or head-lopping incidents galore, in this scene, it's just Butcher's face and his eyes and his ire. It isn't about the gore you can see, but the eventuality that you don't. And imagination is so much more potent with so many more gruesome possibilities when you see something like Butcher with that blade standing over a bound, bleeding soldier boy. A huge shout out has to go to Carlos and Hector Esquerra and Tony Avina for the incredibly impactful artwork. In issue 39 of The Boys, that day's New York Post reads, "R.I.P. Soldier Boy." Homelander, A-Train, and Black Noir are among the soups carrying the casket, and it appears to be a state funeral. There's also a bit of dirt on Soldier Boy and Payback's involvement in secret ventures outside the US in the news, but it's safe to say that regardless of the story Vought put out there about Soldier Boy's death, Soldier Boy never really had a chance to recover from Butcher's custody. Marvelous verdict! Butcher, who not only had military-grade training, real time in service amid obscure battlefields with real killers for enemies, and a grandfather who was a real World War II veteran, well, he had no patience for fakes like Soldier Boy. Also, Butcher was pretty riled by the ruse that was set up for the boys at poor female's expense, and he and his cleaver wanted answers. I'll bet they got a lot more than that. Soldier Boy seemed pretty harmless throughout the story, but that's only because he was up against Butcher, who's hardcore, as Mindroid had pointed out when he was still hale and unshoveled. Can you imagine what Soldier Boy would have done had there been a humdrum cheesecake type guy at the receiving end? All things considered, the Avenging Soup got more than his fair share, but hey, it's the boys and it's Butcher, and we all know how that goes down. That's it from us, folks. If you liked the video, please let us know in the comments and subscribe to us if you haven't already. This is Wheezy249 signing off, but you can always find me on Twitch. For now, I suggest we put the butchery aside and have a marvelous day.